I'm here because I am a roaring lion crying out righteousness. The Supreme Court handed down a ruling today after sitting on it for several months, which I thought, well, I'll give my opinions about that as well, stating that, quite frankly, that Jack Smith has brought criminal charges against Donald John Trump for the action of the assault on the Temple of Democracy on the 6th of January, inciting a riot, among a number of other things that were handed out in the 4-count indictment, I believe it was, in the January 6th event. And Trump's attorneys filed a motion in the lower courts and then made it to the, I think, from the district court to the circuit court, from the circuit court directly to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court sat on it for these past 6 months, and finally their ruling was handed down today, way past the buzzer. It should have been, the last day they handed down was Friday, the 28th of June, but they even waited past the buzzer, which was Friday, June 20th, and handed it down today, effectively saying that Trump is immune from acts that are considered presidential acts, and even if they are crimes, if it's considered in the course and action of his carrying out his duties as president, then he is immune from that. And further stated in their opinion, the majority opinion, and I'm loosely interpreting it, you can read it for yourself, that the lower courts should make a decision about what is a criminal act without presidential authority, and what is the presidential act that allows a president to commit what would normally be considered criminal acts that he would be immune from. So basically what they've done, after sitting on it as long as they've done, one thing is that they've given Trump a win, as one would say, because it's going to make it very difficult for Jack Smith to now try to get Judge Chutkan to organize a trial before the November 5th election. It's possible, but highly unlikely. But the other thing it did, it says that the lower courts need to make these decisions because they weren't clear about, well, what is a criminal act that is not presidential in its efforts and in its character, and what is a criminal act that is presidential in its action and character. They've not made that clear. They did not distinguish. They did not give a guideline or a guidepost. So it could potentially get thrown back to the lower courts, and if Jack Smith now files, okay, well, what is it that we can use in the indictment we have in Judge Chutkan's district court there in Washington, D.C., what can we use as criminal charges that Trump was not acting as president and therefore was not immune from what happened on January 6th, and that they did not make clear. What appears to be clear, but those things that are considered presidential acts, even though they may be criminal in their scope, if they are considered under the presidential acts, if you will, power, that he cannot be charged criminally for that. And moreover, any information that would be derived out of exploring that particular act that Trump did, that is, he's immune from, but what happened in that act cannot be discussed or disclosed or brought as evidence in any non-criminal act. So it's a beehive, if you will, of various, if you will, legal decisions. It's a legal juggernaut, if you must, and juggernaut's probably the best, not a conundrum or if an enigma or a puzzle. It's way out there. There are a couple of things. One is that, in one sense, it makes Trump a king, or any president, for that matter, a king, to some degree. And who's to say that what I would say to Joe Biden, since that decision has come down, what Joe Biden, and I'm not saying this because I got a dog in this fight, that is to say I favor one or the other. I'm just being a journalist giving commentary. I would say to Joe Biden, stand up tomorrow and say, I declare by executive powers that we will not have an election on November 5th, case closed. I am the president. I do it by executive powers. and let the courts decide if I'm right or wrong. And therefore, there'll be no presidential election, and Biden could say, I will remain president until the matter is decided. If there is adverse legal, if you will, opposition challenges to my executive order that we will have no presidential election on the 5th of November. Case closed, executive power. I am the president. That's not a law. Joe Biden can do that right this moment. He can do it tomorrow. Put on a fresh suit, put on a blue suit and a red tie. Joe Biden, slow Joe, could do that. And there's nothing anybody can do about it. Because that's not a judgment that the Supreme Court has handed down. That's one aspect of what, and I'm coming back to that, and I'm not through with that particular aspect, of a whole lot of things Joe Biden can do. And, Joe Biden can order his Justice Department to arrest Trump. He can order his Justice Department to arrest Trump if anything Trump says appears to be a threat against him or any member of the society called the Democrat or Liberal Party. What I mean by that is this, that you can be if you threaten someone's life, there's a code, there's a federal code, I don't know what it is, in the law books that says that the statutes that the Congress have voted on in years gone by, that a threat is a criminal act that you can be immediately arrested for. So Joe Biden, the slow Joe, and I don't have a dog in this fight, I'm not promoting Joe Biden or Trump, but slow Joe could say, arrest Trump for what he just said about Merrick Garland, or what he just said about Jack Smith, calling Jack Smith deranged. Arrest. Joe Biden could stand up and tell his Justice Department, arrest Trump, put him in jail now of threatening members of the FBI. And Trump would have to be arrested. Because Joe Biden that's the power that the Supreme Court just gave to the presidency, whether you like it or not. Now, a whole lot of liberals are jumping up and down with their hair on fire because they know Joe Biden's not going to do that, but they know Trump would. They know doggone well. Woo! If Trump get in that power on November 5th, he's going to have everybody arrested. He might even call for me to be arrested. I wouldn't advise him to do that, though. I'm the Lord's servant. I got other powers that they don't know about. But no, Trump said 12 years ago he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and wouldn't lose any supporters. He could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and won't lose any of the 6 justices that voted for him today. And, I realize this is probably, you're not going to see Trump prosecuted. I don't know if Jack Smith can work his way around what the court has said. You might be in court for another 3 years. Lower court going back up to the Supreme Court. Was this a criminal act? Was he president? Was he acting? That could go on forever. So I don't know if you're ever going to see any things that any trials with Trump perhaps might potentially be arrested. The other thing I think is important here, and what I think is always right, is that now that this law has been down to the Supreme Court, it isn't that they did this because I would think that, yeah, there are some things that the president does as president, and they may be criminal in the eyes of someone else, but as Richard Nixon says, the president does is not illegal. There's a gray area there. I think it's substantial. There's a gray area there that if the president does it because of the sweeping powers that the president has. I agree. Now, I'm not here in support of Trump. I'm not, everybody got the hair on fire. Everybody talking about, oh, Lord God, woe's America. We're no longer a nation. We're under a king and a monarchy and all that kind of stuff. Well, I understand what they're trying to get at. And I'm not in any way supporting Trump. But I do think that the justices had a difficult decision. The issue here is, first of all, the fact that they took so long to make this decision leads me to think that they wanted to be biased. But that is to say that if the same kind of a question had been raised about sleepy Joe Biden, slow Joe Biden, that they would have made the decision months ago. And they could have reached the same decision, but they would have made it months ago. And so I think there is a sense of bias. I think there's a sense of bias in the Supreme Court in terms of how they made their ruling. The other thing that I think is possible, I tell you, Lindsey Graham doesn't like this. Mitch McConnell doesn't like this. Josh Hawley doesn't like this. Ted Cruz doesn't like this. Mitt Romney doesn't like this. There are a whole lot of Republicans that are high visibility Republicans. Mike Pence does not like this. Because effectively, if Trump ordered Mike Pence to be hanged on those gallows that they had out there on the 6th of January, effectively what the Supreme Court says is that the hanging of Mike Pence could not be prosecuted because Trump did it in the act of his presidential powers overseeing the election. And Mike Pence would be deader than a doorknob and Trump could not be prosecuted, according to the ruling that came down today. So Mike Pence definitely don't like this. I got news for you. Kevin McCarthy, Mark Meadows, a bunch of others, none of them like this. Now, they're not going to say that publicly. But this could work against Trump. I'm not sure how effective they can work this process. There are a couple of things. Joe Biden, slow Joe, could stand up and say, arrest Trump and do it now, and then let the courts figure it out. Joe Biden could say, arrest Trump and do it now, and throw him in jail, and let the figure out. But the other thing is this, is that whether or not this could affect Trump in the election, because many people will probably say, well, we can't let, even Republicans will say, even the ones that say publicly they're for Trump, privately they'd have to say, we can't let him become president. And there's a big to-do about all these CEOs, especially people out there in Silicon Valley, and these business leaders saying they're going to throw their support behind Trump. That's not true. Business people are not giving their support, even though he's promising to give these oil companies billions of dollars in tax deregulations and tax breaks. They're not going to vote for Trump. But this could work against Trump because some, Republicans, even though they're sniveling dogs, liars and thieves, might say, this ain't good, not for us. Now, we can't say publicly we're not for Trump, but we got to get together somehow or another and make sure that Trump does not win the election, because if Trump wins the election, he can come at Lindsey Graham anytime he wants. He can come at Ted Cruz anytime he can. Arrest Ted Cruz. Why, Mr. President? Why? Because his father participated in the assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Arrest Ted Cruz. And Donald Trump is crazy. That boy is crazy as hell, you know that. He's crazy enough to do that. Arrest little Marco. Arrest little Marco. Why? He's a part of that Cuban, if you will, brainwashing period that down there that caused all our agents down there in Cuba to have these crazy feelings. This electric shock. Arrest little Marco. Trump could do it. Arrest Stormy Daniels. Arrest Stormy Daniels and do it now. Arrest Alvin Bragg and do it now. That's the power that listen, let me tell you something. That's the power that the Supreme Court just handed to Trump. And it's not a law. It's not a highest law of the land. Once he makes that order, you're going to have to then discover out, well, how do you got to go to court and say, well, this is not, to say arrest Stormy Daniels is not an official act. Well, it may take that several years to move through the court system to discover yay or nay, yes or no. So pretty much that's where we are in terms of this new ruling that has come down. And I didn't chance. It came down after 11 o'clock or right just before 11 o'clock, so I had to go on the air at 12 o'clock. I didn't have time to digest a whole lot of it, but I'd already considered what would be the situation. You may not think very much of this, and I don't want you to misunderstand me and think that somehow or another that I am either got a dog in this fight. I don't. I think Trump is a pimp, a murderer, a psychopath, a degenerate from way back when. I mean, I wouldn't, listen, I'd be scared that any spit that came out of my body is my spit. And I have more concern for my spit than I do for that despicable person called Donald John Trump. I wouldn't put my spit on that hog called Trump. So that's where I'm at with that. But I do want to say this. Is that the fact that this has come down the way it has come down, I don't think the court could have come down with a better decision. They could have came down with this decision much earlier, I think. In fact, I'm clear. But I don't know that, because this matter had never been raised before until we got that degenerate, that psychopath, that liar. All the other presidents, nobody went anywhere near this, so the question was never raised. This is a question that loomed in the background from the days of George Washington, but it was never raised because there was never a case brought. Trump brought one. And so I don't know, what I'm trying to say to you is that I don't know that the Supreme Court could have reached a better decision. I think, I haven't read the decision, and I'm not a lawyer, as you very well know, but I don't know that the court could have reached a better decision. Now, I'm not in favor of Trump. You just heard what I said about him, right? But I don't know that they could have. When you talk about the office of the presidency, the other thing is that that the decision is that if the president is doing something that may be considered a crime if I do it, but if he's doing it in the course of carrying out his presidential duties to protect our nation and our Constitution, then it's not a crime, and he's immune. There's a certain amount of immunity that a president has, and I don't think if they had come out and said there's no immunity, whatever the president does, if somebody decides in a court system, a prosecutor or an attorney general decides it's a crime, he can be punished for it. That opens the door to punishing people for just anything. If you don't like them. I don't. This Supreme Court with Clarence Thomas, I'll tell you something right now. That boy Clarence Thomas, Anita Hill tried to tell y'all about him. That boy Clarence Thomas in the Supreme Court. Gorsuch and Kavanaugh and Comey Barrett and Roberts and all that and Alito. I don't know that they could have reached a better decision, quite frankly. Ketanji Brown Jackson and Sotomayor and everybody jumping up and down said Trump is now king. I don't know if that makes it true. I think that, if that's the case, then Joe Biden can be president for the rest of his natural born life if he wants to, because all they got to do is not stand and say, arrest Trump. You don't like it? Take me to court. Take me to court with your bad self. He can stand up and say, we want to change the Electoral College. We don't like the way it operates. It gives too much power to states like Rhode Island. Only got a few people. They got 2 senators. A state like New York has a zillion people. Still, they only got 2 senators. Let's change all of that and do it now. Who's going to fight him? You got to go to court to fight him. And if he ordered his Justice Department to do something, the Justice Department cannot say, I'm not going to do it. He's the president, for crying out loud, so he got to do it. So Joe Biden has a 4-month window to do a whole lot of stuff. He can create a whole lot of damage. he can make the word tribulation look like, a Sunday school picnic. So I am not sure that the Supreme Court could have come with a better decision. They could have came up and said, no, the president's not immune from anything. Well, that won't work either. No, that won't work. Then he can't be president. The next president can say, I don't like the fact that you went out on a date night. Let's arrest you. And so I don't know, quite frankly. I'm not a legal scholar. I'm trying to be, because I got my own legal stuff in the district court. But I don't know if they could have come up with a better decision. I think what we're looking at is a despicable person in Donald Trump. Donald Trump has forced America to do something that it would not want to do and should not have been forced to do. We have been forced to choose. And that is if there's an argument that needs to be made, rather than everybody jumping up and down with their hair on fire, talking about right or wrong, the argument that ought to be made that Trump should not have forced America and the Supreme Court to have to make this decision. Because nobody else would have done it. Nobody else would force America to make this. So potentially what this could do is that this could cause Trump to lose, because there are a whole lot of people out there who don't like Trump, and Trump don't like them, and the feelings are mutual. There are a lot of people, business people out there, because Trump could say, I want Google to give me private access, and there's certain people I don't want them to have access to Google, and I want TikTok to give me, $1 billion a year for the next 4 years if they want to continue to do business here in America. And business people have to do that because he's the president. He's the president. So I don't know this as, don't have it as a word from the Lord, but I can say this, that this may work against Trump. There may be a whole lot of people say, we got to get rid of that boy. We got to get rid of him. Because the court just gave, and he's fool enough to use that power in ways ain't nobody ever dreamed of. I mean, he could actually order the Navy SEAL Team Number 6 to snuff Joe Biden or Hunter Biden or any of them, or Jill. And then let the courts figure out whether it was the right act or not. I think a lot of people are going to say, I think a lot of people, even MAGA people, who I have something to say about a little bit later in another broadcast, even MAGA people are going to say, wait a minute, this is too much. I don't know if we need all of this. Can we look for another? Because this may, at some point, and I think MAGA people know deep down in their heart that Trump don't give two damns about them. The issue is this and that, and I'll do it in my next block, is that the Hamites are coming. The Hamites are coming. And I think that Trump is perhaps the only one that would be their Napoleon against the Hamites. And or Genghis Khan. And so as a result of that, they're willing to go along with him. But there's an issue here. At any rate, everybody, the Supreme Court has reached this decision. I'm not sure anybody knows what it is. You got a lot of people on television, I'm talking one way or the other about it. And, so we'll see. We will see, as some of the choir, putting on their choir robes, have said just before they march down the aisle. We will see what we will see. At any rate, everybody, I'm James David Manning. I'm the Lord's servant, and don't you ever forget it.